I went to the gym today. My legs are killing me. Hey BookTube, it's Kim at Middle of the Book March, and this is my Bookish week for Sunday, November 19th. I did it. I did it. Let's see. It's dark and kind of gloomy here. My lighting may be a little bit off, but it's dark and gloomy. It is the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and I just had to run out, and I went to a couple errands. I went to the gym, and I started off at Marshall's, which is kind of a discount department store if you're not familiar. And I was looking for jammies for my granddaughter. I found her a couple sets of jammies, and I found her a puzzle and some books. But it was mobbed. It was so crowded. And then I went there first. I went to the gym. Not crowded at all. Almost, there was only 3 treadmills that were taken. The rest of them were wide open. So I had my choice of 20 treadmills. Then I went back to the same plaza to go to the grocery store, and I was so overwhelmed with the crowds. And why did people stop dead in their tracks in the most congested part of the store? And they will park their cart in the aisle, and then they will leave it there as they walk to go get something on the other side of the aisle. It's like, dude, do you not know that you have to push your cart with you and park it with you, grab what you need, and just go. I have road rage in the grocery store. It's bad. It's bad, I'm telling you. It's awful. I get so frustrated in the grocery store. Or they'll stop in the most congested areas to talk to their friend. Or they'll be stopped in front of you on their cell phone. Oh, it's so frustrating. So yeah, I was so happy to get back home. It's quiet here. So I thought I'd sit down and do my video for the weekend. Last week I finished 2 books, and I'm currently reading 2 books. So let me tell you about those. I finished O Caledonia by Elspeth Barker with Freddie from Sluggish Reader. We did this as a buddy read. And Freddie is a great buddy reader. He comes out with some great observations, and I'm able to see what I read in a new light. I'm able to notice connections. And he's an awesome buddy reader. If you haven't had the chance yet, go and check him out. If you've read with him, you know what I'm talking about. But O Caledonia is the story of a Scottish family after World War II, and Janet, the very beginning of the book, Janet is found brutally murdered and bloody on the floor of the family home, which is actually a castle. And that's the opening of the book. And the rest of the book is not, maybe you want to call it a coming of age. I wouldn't call it that, but you find out you go through her life. And you read about her life and how she got to the place where somebody killed her. So she is the oldest of 5 children, and kind of unloved by her parents, fairly neglected or ignored by her father, but kind of unloved by her mother, because she subsequently keeps getting replaced by younger siblings. They keep having children, and she becomes the oldest of 5. So she also becomes angry and isolated and bitter. She doesn't really love her younger siblings. She's jealous of them. She wants to be by herself. She starts to find solace in books and reading, but she's not nice to her siblings. As she was young, she almost caused one of their deaths. She hurt a couple of her siblings just being naive, and angry, and all of that. So her mother did not have a lot of affection for her. And then, yes, eventually Janet finds solace in reading. She also finds solace in the love for animals. So at one point, the family decides they're going to move to this family castle. It's very isolated. It's dark. It's dank. It's wet. It's cold. And they're moving to the Moorish countryside, where it's not like they're living in a town with neighbors. They're out in the middle of nowhere. And this is the environment that Janet and her siblings grow up in. she befriends a bird, and she takes care of the bird. Eventually, she's sent away to a boarding school, a girls' boarding school, where she makes one friend, but it's kind of an incidental relationship because they end up almost stuck together because they're both outcasts. And they kind of don't have a lot of affection for each other, but they're the only people that each other has to hang out with. But we see Janet as socially awkward, socially inept. She's not familiar with dating or boys or relationships. She just doesn't have a lot of experience having a friend. There's a lot going on at home. There's a lot of additional characters that we learn about. There is an older cousin, a cousin of her parents, who lives at this castle that they've moved into, and they have her isolated to a different area of the castle, but Janet wants to befriend her. She can relate with her, and she sees herself in her. And we as the reader see some of Janet in her cousin Lila. But there's so much family baggage and secrets and that type of thing. So Janet is pretty much adrift. And as she's gone off to boarding school, she excels academically because she's quite smart. And eventually she, comes home for the holidays, comes home for the summer. She does have some experiences with boys. And at one point she thinks that she's in love with somebody. And she's at home, she's alone. And then we find out what her thought process is. And is she thinking clearly? Is she being rational? And then we find out what happened to her in the end. This is a very short, slim novel, but it was done so well. Barker's ability to set the setting and the atmosphere and the tone, it pulls you as the reader right in. It's so gothic and dark. It gave me Wuthering Heights vibes. There was water and mold and cold and isolation. There were people there. There was family there. It was a rather large family, but it wasn't a very loving family. It was a very quiet, isolated. People went their own ways. And so Janet was just on an island unto herself. And it gets to a point where you root for her as the reader, but then you also see how deeply flawed she is. But Barker writes that so well. And her writing is poetic and really beautiful. One of the only quibbles I had with the book was the ending. It seemed to rush up to me. It happened so fast. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait, was there a foreshadowing for this? What did I miss as I was reading this novel? What was the motivation? And I kept asking, I've talked to Freddie about this. I kept asking those questions. Like this like rushed up to me like a train. Like I was looking at the lights and all of a sudden the train was barreling at me. I couldn't like come to terms with this happened too fast. But the novel is beautiful. So if you like that dark gothic tone, if you like, the isolation and reading about a young girl that should have had better, then this was an excellent novel. I highly recommend it. O Caledonia by Elspeth Barker. This particular one has an introduction by Maggie O'Farrell. So yes, I definitely recommend that one. The other book I finished was a nonfiction book, which was fantastic. 5 stars. This is Say Nothing, a true story of murder and memory in Northern Ireland by Patrick Radden Keefe. If you're not familiar with him, he was, at least, maybe he's not anymore, a staff writer for The New Yorker. He is the author of Empire of Pain, which was excellent, about the opioid epidemic in the United States and the Sackler family dynasty, who just, if you want to read about abject greed and wealth, then read Empire of Pain. This is the story of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And one of the best things that Keefe does in this book is, this is a launching point for me. Like, I was never gripped and fascinated so quickly into nonfiction than in this book. It's got everything. It has murder. It has mayhem. It has disappearing. It has war. It has politics. It has love and family. And the battle between Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland, the history, I was gripped from the very beginning. The amount of research that he must have accomplished to write this book. He researched it for 4 years before he wrote it. He had personal interviews of people that were involved in terrorist activities, that were part of secret murders and the verb of disappearing people. He went to the country several times, listened to recordings, read letters, saw pictures. I mean, the research was exhaustive. But the way he writes narrative nonfiction is it pulls the reader in immediately, and it keeps you gripped. It keeps you interested. It was just one of the best narrative nonfictions I've ever read. If you are interested in true stories of Ireland, I absolutely love Irish novelists as well, but I love reading about the history of Ireland. This is a book for you. This is something that you should pick up immediately if you haven't. This has been in my home for a couple of years. I have heard nothing but glowing reviews about this book, and they're all true. And I was actually sorry that I hadn't read it sooner. This is a photograph of a woman named Dolores Price, who was a member of the IRA, who was a contributor in terrorist activities, who eventually became a prisoner for her activities. And I'm not spoiling anything because it happens very early in the book. We learn about her, we learn about her life, we learn about her family. There's so much family legacy that has to do with the war in Northern Ireland, the Troubles. It's so interesting. He is a master narrative storyteller, narrative nonfiction storyteller. It's such an interesting topic. I can't recommend this enough. This was an easy 5-star nonfiction read for me. So I urge you to go and pick that one up. What am I reading now? I continue to read the Unabridged Journals of Sylvia Plath. That's probably going to be a long-term project read for me because that's not something I can read quickly all the way through. So I'm reading a little bit at a time. For me, it's very poetic, and the language, it's Sylvia Plath. So I read a little bit and I have to absorb what she wrote. And it doesn't have anything to do with the content of her journals and the content of what she's writing about and her life. It's the way she writes it. The way she writes in her own private journals, which weren't private forever, obviously. But the poeticism and the lyricism of her writing is just, it's a lot, and it's gorgeous. And so I'm taking my time with that one. The one I just started is the second book in the Free Decline series, Tuesday's Gone by Nikki French. And I talked about this before, but you kind of have to read these in order. So Blue Monday was the first one. Tuesday's Gone is the second one. Frida Klein is kind of a forensic psychologist. She helps solve crimes. She helps investigate. She works with the police department in London. And I just read like the first 3 chapters. I actually read a couple at the gym. It's so good. It's so good. And I love the writing. Love the writing. So, as you know, I had a massive unhaul. I will be shipping out books this coming week. So if anybody won books, I will be shipping them out soon. But I bought 3 books. What? You say? What? 3 books that I'm really excited about, and I'm going to show you them real quick. The first one, I could not delay any longer. I could not wait any longer. I was going to kind of wait for this book to come out in paperback. Nope, didn't do that. This is The Marriage Question, George Eliot's Double Life by Claire Carlyle. Why in the world would I have bothered to wait? I had to get my hands on a copy for myself, so I did. And I am so happy that I have this in my home. I would love to read it this year. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get to it, but it's on my super fast TBR. TBR for me doesn't exist. 2 other books that I bought that I'm very excited about. The first one, The 1, 2, 3s of Kindness by Patricia Hegarty, illustrated by Summer Macon. This is a baby book. This is for my granddaughter. It is so cute. It's basically a counting book. It counts to 10, and it talks about kindness on every little board book page. I thought this was so adorable. The 1, 2, 3s of Kindness. It's got all the little animals on it. And the other one that I thought was so exciting was You're My Little Cutie Pie. This is illustrated by Natalie Marshall, and I believe she also wrote the book. Yep. And it's so cute. It's got like this little, it's a little autumn themed book. There's a pie with whipped cream on it and a buttered roll. It's all centered around Thanksgiving food and autumn food. It is so adorable. That's a little cranberry. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. You Are My Cutie Pie. So those two books are not going to be on my shelves, so I'm not worried about taking up space. They will go directly to my granddaughter, who I would have been babysitting last night, and I can't wait. And I bought her stuff so she'll love me. Yes, I'm buying her stuff for bribery. I don't care. I'm the Grammy. I get to do that. So that is all for me for this week. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments below if you have any feedback, if you've read any of the books that I talked about, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.